he's the busiest guy in sports media. One second he's at spring training in Arizona, the next he's in the beautiful city of Indianapolis. I guess at the Combine. Where are you joining us from? Charlie Goldsmith joining us now. Charlie, where are you joining us from today?
I am in a gathering area next to the media workroom, I guess would be the best way to describe this. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Look, we appreciate you giving us time. We'll get to the Reds in a moment. I know you covered spring training last week, and the Reds, very exciting team right now. We'll talk about them in a moment. The NFL Combine, Cincinnati Bengals, no shortage of storylines there. I'm sure there's plenty for you to be covering right now. Just your overall takeaway from the demeanor and the message from Duke Tobin. Were you surprised about anything that he said in his media availability earlier in the week? Are you shocked about anything at this point? What was your overall takeaway from how he addressed the media at the Combine?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe surprise is too strong of a word, but it was a completely different message than we had heard about Higgins extensions, and even Hendrickson. It was stronger language, and Jamar saying that they'd make him the highest paid receiver in the league. And it's very clear that Duke Tobin has a specific set of deals that he'd like to get done. And it's funny, so he's up there on the podium, and I have my notebook, and if you've seen me out in the field, you know that I carry a big school style notebook, a bigger school style notebook, because I have big handwriting, and that's where I take my notes and know what's going and keep track of what's going on. When Duke was talking, I actually flipped the page and started a new page, and I wrote in all caps, "Don't blow this." There was a lot of confidence, but with it, the thing I couldn't stop thinking about was there's even more pressure now to get these deals done. They know exactly what they want. They're on the same page with their quarterback, but it's on the desk of the front office and ownership to execute it. Ultimately, these decisions are even higher level than the people we've spoken to this week in terms of what they'll guarantee, how aggressive they'll go, how the new salary cap numbers impact all this. And again, we know what they like to do. It's just about whether or not they're going to be able to fit it all in. They've got the cap space, but are they willing to be that aggressive to get the moves they've got to get done?
Duke Tobin exuded that confidence that you talked about there during his Combine interview, but there was a report yesterday that if the Bengals can't meet Trey Hendrickson's asking price, it's a sense around the league that they will trade him rather than have him play out the last year of that contract. Where has this necessarily come from over the last couple days, and do you expect the Bengals to break their mold on 30-plus-year-old extensions to keep Trey Hendrickson around?
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson, the tone on him certainly wasn't what it usually is for a superstar player, or for a star Pro Bowl, all-pro player who's under contract, which is he makes our team better, no chance that we'd move on from him. That was the tone, for example, with Higgins in 2022. I believe the truth with Trey is somewhere in the middle. Duke Tobin said that they're talking to Trey about an extension. So the fact that that's happening shows that, sure, there is some interest there. It's not like they would not want him under a new contract heading into the future. But the fact that he also didn't turn down, shut down the trade conversation shows that, if someone calls with a first-round pick, things probably get very interesting. I've planted my flag. I think the best decision for the Bengals would be trading Hendrickson, reinvesting in a younger defensive end who could represent kind of the future wave of that room. That ideally you're building a defense that carries forward for the next 4 seasons, a unit that restarts now and builds and grows together, and then using the draft capital that you will get to help reset and rebuild this defense as well. I believe in the power of that. With where the Bengals are at, what I believe is that the truth is in the middle based on how the specific details of the negotiations from a free agent and trade perspective will go.
We saw Sheldon Rankins get cut yesterday, the first answer to a litany of Bengals roster questions this offseason. A lot of other names we've thrown out there. Some have slid down that list since the last time we spoke. Geno Stone, seemingly sure thing to run it back at the safety position for the Cincinnati Bengals. When do you expect us to start hearing about some of these other cuts we expect, or will they still be coming at all?
What's a good example? Trey Hopkins is a good example of this. 2022, or heading into 2022 after the Super Bowl, I believe the timing was they signed Karras, and then once they had the bird in the hand, they cut Trey Hopkins. Okay. I would be surprised to see that similar strategy as well. They didn't cut Andy Dalton until they drafted Joe Burrow. So that timing would make a lot of sense. But listen, when we talk to Bengals coaches this week, when they're doing their press conferences, the name, and everybody loves Sam Hubbard, I'd actually bring Sam Hubbard back to be this team's 5th defensive end this year. I planted my flag there as well. But the name Sam Hubbard, Jermaine Pratt, to an extent, Geno Stone hasn't been really talked about at all. When they talked about the future of the safety room, I get the sense that it's very much to be determined there, as opposed to one way or another. Alex Kappa has been glossed over in every media conversation, with the Bengals guys. So, certainly expectation is they'll open up some more cap room.
We saw this morning that Abdul Carter had a foot injury pop up. Mason Graham only doing the bench press. Yesterday, Walter Nolan said that he had some things to clean up before he was comfortable doing on-field testing for NFL scouts. How much does that on-field testing at the Combine still matter for NFL teams? Will these players start plummeting down boards? And for the Bengals specifically, how much does seeing them this weekend in Indianapolis really swing them, especially in the early rounds of the draft?
Well, it depends on who you are. There are some guys who, if they fall and it's a top 5 talent available to you, with Bengals pick in the middle of the first round, they're high on Amarius Mims, for example. I don't know that they needed to see Mims do anything at the Combine. Even also, he was coming off the ankle injury. Like, there was some minor medical stuff that kind of he had on his resume. And that was a big part of the reason why he slid to them, and they were happy to go out and take him, and they think they've got a future Pro Bowler. So it depends on the player. If you're Amarius Mims, you'll be just fine. If you're, a lower end first round type, and this decreases your stock more, well, certainly that has an impact. It really does depend on the player, from my experience.
We see the Bengals meet with a lot of the first-round defensive ends yesterday. Started off today with a report that they met with Malachi Starks, consensus first-round safety out of Georgia. How much do these meetings entail who they're going to take early in the draft? It seems in the past, obviously, the players they've taken in the first round, they've met with multiple times. Is this a good way to look at where the Bengals board is starting to shape up, or is it reading too deep into just the first couple days of the Combine?
Well, here's what we don't know. We don't know how these meetings went. And, of course, The player's always going to say it went well. But I can guarantee you this. When the Bengals have a great meeting, see Chris Jenkins, see Jordan Battle, I'm sure I could come up with 10 other examples from the past couple of years. Logan Wilson knocked it out of the park at the Senior Bowl. That really, really matters. If it's a bad meeting or if it's just something that doesn't get reported, well, who knows? If we knew for a fact the meetings went well, I would be putting a lot of stock into it. But since we don't have all that information, it's probably too soon to say in a lot of cases.
Charlie Goldsmith giving us some time here today off the bench. Justin Kinner, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissa with you here. Charlie, last thing on the Bengals before we send it over to Elliot to dive into the red side of this. Obviously, a lot of big decisions have to be made. Like, what's that first big domino that's going to fall? Is it going to be in your opinion, like, where do you feel like this is trending? Is it going to be the Jamar Chase extension done first, an announcement on T's future first? Like, what do you think the first big domino is that's going to fall as far as timelines are concerned moving forward?
Yeah, I guess the first big domino will be them giving the franchise tag to T. Higgins because, there's a deadline there. But actually, we talked about Duke Tobin takeaways earlier. My biggest takeaways was the theme of urgency and needing to get deals done sooner to open up more flexibility to address a team full of flaws. The team that Tobin acknowledged has a lot of holes that they need to address and improve to make sure they're improving the team and not just keeping the guys they have. So the timeline and urgency with T is where my focus is. Again, we won't know where that really stands until it's done. I believe that there's no deal that's close. It's either done or it's not done. And the Bengals, of course, have to cross the finish line. T has to cross the finish line as well. They've got to get this done, and that should be the first domino that falls. Who knows if it will?